we have heard a lot of various things on both sides of the aisle, but in particularly over here about aggressive rulemaking and that agenda. Over the last 2 years, the SEC has proposed nearly double the number of rules that your two predecessors proposed within the same amount of time. The only time we've seen this pace of activity is when the SEC was implementing Dodd-Frank, those provisions after the financial crisis. So the difference here is that your agenda is not being driven by congressional mandate or widespread market failures like we saw in 2008, and that makes me concerned. In fact, it's quite the contrary. 83% of your proposals are not required by Congress, and we have yet to see a market failure that warrants this many new proposals and regulations. Even your own former Inspector General raised concerns about the pace of the activity within your agency and said staffing issues may affect the quality of these rulemaking. To add to this, I believe you have failed to provide the public with justification for these sweeping regulations and have failed to allow for a robust public comment period due to fully understand the broad implications on the market. It makes me think, what constituency is the SEC actually listening to? I don't believe it is the average mom and pop or a 401k investor in the state of Alabama. It seems to be a small handful of politically aligned investors. It's my belief that we want to encourage people to go public so that more people have an opportunity to invest and share in the fruitfulness of the market. I am concerned that some of the things that are going on are going to actually deter people from doing just that. There are countless examples that we have seen, but I want to ask you about the anticipated proposal that I heard Senator Warner ask you about, the human capital disclosure. So when can we expect to see that proposal issued?
Thank you. It's good to meet you.
It's nice to meet you as well.
I worked a lot with your former senator from your great state, Senator Shelby.
Absolutely.
Again, we don't do things so much against the clock. We wanted to see what those first couple of years of filings look like. Chair Clayton and the SEC had put something in 2020. Mm-hmm. We've looked at those. We looked at the data, and the staff is working through.
So tell me on that, actually. So August 2020 is when that was implemented. It seems that when you look at that, we've had a 3-year time period, but the vast majority of that has been during the COVID time period, and the implications on workforce and these things may not be an adequate representation of what they may be in the future. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think it was a very unusual time for our nation, for sure, but this is about the public filings and seeing how public companies had adjusted their disclosures.
So what is missing, from your perspective, from the 2020 implementation that needs to be adjusted or expanded here?
What staff is looking at is the filings and how those disclosures are informing investors about a very important material asset, the human capital itself. And it's possibly around the total dollars spent on workforce and the turnover.
So we don't know when we'll see that. Is what you said. I'm clear on that, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then, but once you bring it forth, how long do you expect to leave the public comment period open for such an important rule?
Well, we'll make that determination at the time, but all of our...
What is the threshold? Can you help me with that?
So all of them since January of 22 have been out to public comment at least for 60 days from when we voted out of the commission.
Really?
And on average, it's been about 70. And I would say even beyond that, because it takes 12 to 24 months to finalize a rule, we continue to take meetings, we continue to take comments, and staff considers those comments.
I am running out of time, so I'll make it quick. Last question. Can we expect to see a proper, robust cost-benefit analysis when you do release this? Obviously, we've been talking about it or hearing you talk about it for 2 years. I am hopeful that you will truly take into account the downstream effects of whatever you propose. I think that some of the things that we've seen, in my opinion, have been half-baked, and I am hopeful with something with such large implications that we will see a very thorough analysis and how it goes all the way down to a lot of the smaller entities that I'm concerned about.
We do robust economic analysis on each of the rules, so thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.